anything's spelled wrong or the pictures all look the same because I didn't have the time to go through and correct everything. But let's start off with Taylor. Let's start off with your top 5 mid-round prospects and who you like the most and why.
Yeah, so I have first off Adami Tucker, edge out of Western Michigan, played in a Chris O'Leary defense, had 14 sacks last year. His overall grade, according to PFF, was 91.4. I think if, let's say, the Chargers don't go edge rusher in rounds 1 or 2, they get him in the later round. Already knows the Chris O'Leary defense and can fit right in for that third edge rusher that they're looking for. Second guy I have is Jaeger Burton, center out of Kentucky, offensive lineman, which is what the Chargers need. He could play in a Mike McDaniel scheme. He started 12 games at center last year, but has positional versatility. I know he's played at left guard and right guard in his career, so can move him for a depth piece on that offensive line. And let's say once again the Chargers decide they don't want to go offensive line first and second round, a guy like this you may be able to put in plug and play and be a starter. I have Kumari Ramsey, safety out of USC, which I had talked about. I think he'd be a great addition to that secondary. You can utilize Derwin James all around the field. He can go into pass coverage. As I mentioned, he's a local kid. He's already had a visit with the Chargers, so I think that pick makes sense. Landon Robinson's another guy that I have mocked several times to the Chargers. Defensive tackle out of Navy, a little bit undersized. He had 8 sacks last year for Navy. I think he had 14 and a half sacks total in his career. Coming over to a great defensive line coach with Mike Elston. He's been able to take a lot of players that had bad years, were underrated, and turn them into really good players. I mean, Tier Tart's one of them. Puna Ford is another one. So I think a guy like that, also working with leaders like Khalil Mack on the defensive line, I think that would be a great pick. And then I have at 5 here, I have Bryce Lance, which we had touched on, a wide receiver coming over to the Chargers. Trey Lance does play for the Chargers still, so he'd have his brother on the roster. I think he ran, let's see, he's 6'3", 204, ran a 4.34 at the combine.
Wow.
Had over 1,000 yards receiving last year, 8 touchdowns. He could be that top speed guy that we're looking for in that Mike McDaniel offense, and I think you could probably get him in the third roundish. I've seen him mocked, so these are my 5 guys I have in the mid rounds for the Chargers.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like Ramsey. We talked about that. Landon, I think he's like the only sub 6 foot defensive tackle
Yeah,
in the draft. That'd be my only worry. And you bring up
yeah.
another receiver who's 6'3", runs a 4.340. None of you guys had him on your list, but who's the wide receiver out of Cincinnati? Is it like John or Jeff Williams or
Jeff
David
Caldwell.
Caldwell? Yeah. He's another guy, 6'5", 4.3, ridiculous speed. But I'll be interested to see where, while these guys are all touted in our mock drafts, right, using PFSN or whoever we're using, the 4th, 5th, 6th round picks, this is where I think that back end of the first round or early second round gets interesting, where these guys start going off the board because we just don't know enough about them and somebody else thinks they know enough, right? So awesome. Appreciate you bringing that up to the table. Next, we'll go with you, Eric, because you're the next on my sheet here. Let's hear who you've got up there. You mentioned one of these guys earlier.
Yeah, I'll just go in the order you have them there too. But so if the Steelers miss out on Bernard and Cooper Jr. or it's the double dip, I think the double dip would be Kendrick Law, a receiver out of Kentucky. I like him at 5'11", about 205, 210, very shifty. He had a lot of receiver screens, things like that, but he's also a really good and effective kick returner, punt returner as well, which I think the Steelers are missing. Someone's got to challenge Roman Wilson for that job, and who knows if Roman Wilson's even on the team. So I like him a lot. Kyle Lewis at Pitt, like I said, I mean, I think this guy is a Swiss Army knife on defense, and you guys have heard me boast about him, so I won't spend too much time on him. Bo Stevens is the guard from Iowa. I'm gonna tell you this: you take a lineman from Iowa, they're going to be good, and I think he
It's
is
very true.
I do think he is like your fallback option if the Steelers cannot get Vega or Rutledge from Georgia Tech, or you get him as a depth piece as well too. So I really like the way he plays. Very strong, smart, and I believe he was a captain for a while or his senior season. And when I read multiple bios, it just seems like his play is progressing upwards. So I really really like him, and he already looks good in black and gold anyway. Um, and then Travis Burke, I also spoke about him as well. So I won't, go on that. But the two guys you have there, and I did cheat a little bit by putting two guys there because both of them First off, the Steelers had both of those guys in for a top 30 visit, and they are that new avatar 6'3", 6'4" corner where the length is a problem, right? And they we like what we have in Joey Porter Jr. He is in a contract year, so I really hope that the Steelers do sign him. He's cleaning up the penalties, which is also something that's the bugaboo for both these guys from Washington. But they both have alignment versatility, so they can play left side, right side. And the Steelers defense is just built on length. And we got Dean from Tampa to start into the other corner spot, but I believe you can kick him around. And if you have, I think Price Sock is the better of the two, but I just love the length of both these guys because again, you have to match up with 12 and 13 personnel a lot of times now with these 6'6" tight ends. And these guys would give the Steelers that versatility.
Yeah, love the picks. Obviously, you had Kyle Lewis on there. We actually did he was a late round gem for us a couple of weeks ago. And Bo Stevens, I think, is the same thing. I think he's like just one of those dominant guards that's going to be able to at least run block to start, right?
Yeah.
And Tacario Davis, I think he's going to be one of those other prospects that's like a cornerback / safety. Not great in one-on-one coverage, but great in the zone. Right. And he can definitely come up and put the smack on somebody. So awesome. Appreciate you bringing that up. All right, let's get to who do I have next here? Chris, let's get into your mid round. And actually, you've got a familiar face on there as well.
Yeah, so Eric had a couple of my guys, so I won't go too far into it. I had Tacario Davis and Travis Burke as well on my list. But Ted Hurst, wide receiver out of Georgia State, I personally think the Giants would be better off waiting to day 2 or day 3 to take a receiver, maybe early day 3 with Hurst. I know he might be like a late 3rd round pick. Production was unbelievable the last 2 years, 127 catches for 1,965 yards. So really, really good production. And he did really well at the combine, had the best, which was really interesting, the best broad jump of any receiver at the combine, 11 feet, 3 inches. The production was a little mixed against top competition. That's the downside to him, I'd say. Didn't do great against Ole Miss, Georgia Tech, but he was good in games against Vanderbilt and Memphis as well. So, he's a guy I think the Giants need, like a big outside receiver. They already have Malik Neighbors, who's obviously the do-it-all number 1 guy. They kind of need another big outside wide receiver, so I like him. Chris McClellan, a defensive lineman out of Missouri, obviously no Dexter Lawrence anymore for the Giants, so they're going to need to obviously bulk up the interior. Can line up all across the defensive line as a 1 tech, 3 tech, or 5 tech. Not the greatest athlete, but I think he's going to step in immediately and be good against the run, which, again, I think the Giants need to prioritize stopping the run, one of the worst run defenses last year in the NFL. And, obviously, Lee Hunter, I think is an interesting one because, he was one of the best players in college football, but he had one of the worst combines you've ever seen, worst vertical jump of any of the defensive tackles, and he had tied for the worst broad jump. But, he led all of FBS in run defense stops and tackle for loss or no gains over his final 2 seasons when he was at UCF, according to Pro Football Focus. So another guy that I think will go on day 2, and I think he's going to be a good player despite some of the athletic limitations with him.
Yeah, it's interesting how he's dropped down the boards recently, but after the Senior Bowl, he shot up the boards where teams were talking about him being a late 1st round, early 2nd. Now they're talking about him being, so it'll be interesting to see where he falls at the end. All right, sorry. Let's get on to let's go to 3 Angry Giants over there, and let's talk about your list here.
Yeah, so one of my guys is wide receiver Cyrus Allen out of Cincinnati. Production's there. He led the Big 12 with 13 touchdowns, and he's got medium size, 5'11", 180, but he's got speed. So elite speed and separation. He could be a good value there because I think he could be had in the 6th round possibly. Second guy is linebacker Jimmy Rolder from Michigan. He might end up being a 7th rounder or an undrafted free agent even, but he's just one of those players that brings a lot of of impact and desire to the game. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the strongest guy. He's not the fastest guy, but he has production, and that's one of the reasons I see him as a possibility in the middle rounds or late rounds actually. Devin Moore, cornerback from Florida, probably not a sleeper because I think this guy's probably going to go in the third round. But he had some issues with injuries throughout his first couple years that put him on the downside of draft boards, and now he's rising up again. Another guy, safety VJ Payne. He's one that he had a lot of talent coming into the draft, and he's done all right with Kansas State. He's had some key plays, some interceptions that have turned games around, and he's probably going to be another guy that could be there in the 5th and 6th round.
Mm-hmm.
And then my last guy is Caleb Proctor, who's a defensive tackle from Southeast Louisiana. Projects to be about 4th rounder, but he's one of those small school guys that you don't know what you're going to get. But this guy was a beast in his area, so he saw action as a freshman. He had 5 tackles for losses as a freshman, and he just kept that production going throughout his career. So I see those guys being ones that you could get in the mid rounds. Like I said again, Devin Moore's probably not going to be a late rounder. He's going to be a 3rd round pick, I think. But
Well, I mean, that's okay. Middle round. I mean, that's the idea is I think the idea of this came up is the fact that more and more of these mock drafts you do, you come up with different names each time. And then you're like, oh, who's this guy? Or what's this guy? And then you find out like, oh, he's a former 5-star recruit. He got shifted around between colleges and so the idea is just, it's fun just to kind of go through and talk about the guys that you guys probably like the most, either for your team or for whatever reason. I know that's where my 5 kind of came up with is just really for me, it started off as an excuse not to draft a tackle in the 1st round. And if I could find one later on, and then you start finding other guys that you like. And it's interesting to have these conversations kind of where everybody thinks. All right. So the last one I've got, I'm not sure who put it in for 5 count, but whoever wants to spit it out, go ahead and tell us what you got.
George, that's you.
I didn't know. Well, as you can see, I have a couple different, kind of picks in there. You probably like, what the hell y'all doing? These are late round picks, people. So I got Devin Moore in there at cornerback. He's not a sleeper. He can't be. This dude is good. Like, great tackler in space.
Yeah.
He can cover pretty much anybody, but the only thing is he lacks in certain size. So you can kind of catch him out of position every now and again against those bigger receivers, but he's still really, really good at the position. Oscar Delp out of Georgia. I'm going to tell you right now, if you haven't been watching, one of the main targets for Gunnar Stockton for these last few years.
The boy's a dog.
Oscar Delp. Now, I don't know why. Well, I know exactly why. Because if you run a 4.3 40 at tight end, I'm not necessarily drafting anybody before you. So kind of putting him up higher against like Kenyon Sadiq and some of the other tight ends that kind of come up, not necessarily going to be that, run off the page. In my mind, I have an NFL comp for him, and we kind of already have him in Noah Gray. But at the same time, he could be a lot more. He's a good blocker, and he's a great catcher. So Oscar Delp, I love him. Now, Zion Young was a question mark I had written in here because, of course, Zion Young could easily go into the 2nd and 1st. Or late 1st if somebody's stupid enough to take him, and early enough in the 2nd if somebody's want to take him there. So I got him in like the late 2nd round, early 3rd kind of mark if you want to put him there. But Katron Allen, that's a real late round pick that I really, really like, simply because the running back room can be much more exciting. As a Chiefs fan, and little fact that I'll go ahead and put out here, I played football with Jamal Charles, so he reminds me a lot of Jamal in his early years before he got hurt. So at the end of the day, like Katron Allen could be lightning in a bottle because he can, once he is in open space, there's no catching him. But that's the thing. He works well within the tackles, so he's really, really good there. But with him playing at Penn State, he didn't play with earth movers. So he didn't play with a really, really good offensive line. So you don't really have a whole bunch of tape on him that explodes off the camera for you at a lot of times. He does have a little bit of an issue with some of the route running as far as him running out of the backfield as, a pass catcher for a running back. But that's not something that, Andy Reid worries about too much as far as what he likes to get out of his running back. So Katron Allen is there. And then I have Mike Washington up there because, of course, we need another receiver. That's just it. We just need another receiver, big and bad. That's just pretty much how it goes there.
Well, Mike, I like Mike Washington Jr. because you can't teach big and you can't teach fast, and he's both. And I think out of the backfield, I think he's to me, he's a guy that to me, I look at him. I think he's a real sleeper. I think he's going to be good in this draft as a running back.
I really love the Zion Young pick here. I'm glad he finally got some recognition. I mean, the guy is an insane athlete overall, and he's not getting talked about enough as a really good edge rusher. I think he could go honestly inside the top 35.
Yeah,
I think he challenges a lot of what these guys have. We always talk about David Bailey and Arvell Reese. I see Zion Young in that conversation.
Yeah, I think
as edge 3.
Zion could be up there if Seattle doesn't trade back. I could see them definitely adding some talent to that
He's
end.
definitely a Seattle type player.
So and Devin Moore, you guys both have Devin Moore for me. Like he keeps creeping up in every mock draft I do where he falls. Sometimes he falls to the 4th, sometimes it's the 3rd. But him and was it Everett from Georgia are both like 6'2", 6'3" corners.
Darnell Everett, I think it is.
Kind of play that hybrid size thing. So, all right, I'll pull up mine. Mine is going to be, it's kind of the guys that we've talked about. Deny Dennis Sutton. I don't know if
Danny.
It's not. It's Deny.
It's Deny?
Yeah, you were wrong. You made me look like an idiot.
I've always heard from other YouTubers and other people calling him Danny.
They're idiots too.
Deny. Fair enough.
Deny Dennis Sutton. Out of Penn State. I don't know how much you guys know about him. When he was there with Abdul Carter, he actually had more pressures the year that he played alongside of him than Carter did. He's 6'5". I had to write this down because I didn't realize he was 6'5". He's 6'5", 250, runs a 4.6 40, had a 9.96 RAS. He's got 33.5-inch arms. I mean, he played for Penn State, which obviously had their own troubles last year, but he's one of those guys, like, if the Steelers end up with him, I swear to God, I'm going to see him in the backfield every Sunday.
It's going to be very annoying.
Like, he's that 3rd-round pick that's going to be somewhere in that 70 to 85 range. I've got Anthony Hill Jr. We already talked about him as a 6'2", 240 linebacker who just plays sideline to sideline. You brought up a guy that you were hoping the Steelers were going to pick, Darrell Jackson Jr. out of Florida State, 6'6", 6'7", 315, 35-inch arms, and an 86-inch wingspan. This guy just moves and takes up space. I would love to have him. As a Browns fan, we've had defensive run stopping issues after we lost McLeod Collins at the end of the year. So that's where I came up with that. And then for me, it's finding tackles, and it's interesting. So I got Markel Bell and Tristan Lay. Not a lot of people talk about these guys outside the 5th-round draft pick area. Markel Bell is 6'9", 346, hasn't given up a sack in 2 years at Miami. 36.5-inch arm length. And while his run blocking suffers, he had the highest PFF pass block on the Miami offensive line. I think this dude is going to go somewhere, and if he plays for an offensive line coach that knows to do anything with that kind of size, regardless of his lack of ability, struggles with the bend, he's not going to be going against Myles Garrett every weekend. Like, the dude is going to just be a beast for somebody. And then it's funny because you talked about Ed drafting the right tackle from Clemson. His name escapes me.
Blake Miller.
Correct. Blake Miller. Tristan Lay played on the opposite side of him. And if you watch film of the offensive line for Clemson, that right side gives way a lot more than the left side. He scores terrible through PFF, and this is why I hate PFF. It's like a 50 and a 56. Yet he only gave up 10 pressures and 0 sacks compared to Blake Miller's 14 pressures and 2 sacks. 6'6", 315, 34.5-inch arms. Only had 4 penalties last year. Had ankle injuries, I think, and missed a couple of games last year and a couple of games before that, but he's still got 28 starts at left tackle for Clemson over the last 3 years. To me, I love the Browns to pick either of these two guys come 4th, 5th, 6th round. That'd be a home run for me. So, yeah.
You're taking my sleeper there. I love Lee.
Yeah.